welcome back to the garage. As I promised before, we've got a welding project today. One of the problems I've had here in the shop is I haven't had a proper welding table. I haven't had a welding table at all. I either set things up on these plastic sawhorses, which is not ideal. Since they are plastic, they're not great for high heat, or more often I do things on the floor, which is of course uncomfortable and there's no way to clamp things down. So I've been planning on building a welding table. I was just gonna order some steel, do a nice thick heavy table, weld some legs on it, and have a simple welding table. Then I came across this product. It's from a company called Tab and Slot, and what this is their CertiFlat welding table. As the name suggests, that's designed to stay nice and flat and be rigid, and more importantly, it's really not that much more expensive than just ordering the materials by themselves. So I just pulled it out of the box. I wanted to leave these boards on it. This is how they ship it. I'm pretty happy with how they ship it together. It's unwelded, but it is fully assembled and screwed together with these 2x4s. And I put a straight edge across here. It appears to be nice and straight as it is. So what I think I'm going to do is leave these 2x4s on it until I can get it tacked together. So I think it should go together fairly easily. So on the top, we've got a nice, I want to say that's about 1/8 inch or so. I need to check on the actual thickness. And then on the bottom, it actually has some ridges or some ribs around it that should hold it nice and tight. And I'll go ahead and I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you can see the top a little bit better, and then I'll flip it over so you can see that those ribs on the bottom. Okay, so here's a close-up of the top. You can see they've got laser cut slots. As the name of the company, Tab and Slot, might suggest, the ribs underneath have tabs and the tops have slots. So you can see how it comes through the top, and we can weld directly to there. And it's that's cut out so that I should be able to weld in there with minimal buildup on top, maybe a little bit of grinding to make it smooth, but it should hold it together very well, and it appears to be well designed. So let's take a look at the bottom. So here on the bottom, you can see that it's got braces running each way. They are slotted so that they slot into each other, and then there are those slots into the top that the tabs on these pieces hook into. So it should be, with minimal amount of welding, this should be nice and rigid. So like I said, I'm going to leave these boards on since they seem to be doing a nice job of holding it together. I'm going to flip it back over, and in all those slots, I'm just going to do a little bit of tack welding, which should get it held together really well for the finish welding. So I got all the tack welds that I can do with those boards on done, and I pulled the boards off. In retrospect, I probably should have taken it completely apart so that I could clean it a little bit better. I did clean inside all the slots. I used a rag with a little bit of mineral spirits on it. Couldn't find my acetone, which probably would have been better. And used a screwdriver to get in there, but it was still a little bit dirty. So just a tip for you, you may be better off completely disassembling it, so you can wipe all those tabs off, get the oil, because it's obviously packed with some oil, so that it doesn't rust when it's being shipped. But I'm pretty happy with how it has come together. Other than that, I pulled the boards off, and now I have the final rows of tabs and slots to weld, and then everything should be tacked together. I'll double check again that it's still nice and flat. Do a little adjusting if it isn't, and then I can do the final welding. Okay, I got the top of the table welded up and still dead flat, so it's looking pretty good. I've flipped it upside down, and I think Probably the one negative thing I have to say about this, which is hardly a negative, is it really didn't come with any instructions. Now the reason I say it's hardly a negative is how many of us are going to read the instructions anyway, so why waste the paper? So one thing I'm not sure is, should I really weld anything on the bottom? What I've decided I'm going to do is where all the braces cross, I'm going to do a little welding there, and I will tack them to the tabletop from underneath, just to make sure everything's stays nice and sturdy. So I'm going to do that, and also I'm going to do the legs. Now these tables come with the legs are optional. If you wanted, you could just buy the tabletop, add your own legs to it, or if you didn't have much space and you just wanted to be able to put the welding table on top of your workbench, you'd have that option. This is the 2 foot by 4 foot size. It's about 100 pounds, so I don't want to be lifting it up onto a workbench. But if you had one of the smaller ones, that might be a good option. So I'm getting ready to install the legs. I took a little time to clean them up and to test fit them once, but it goes together extremely easily. Everything's laser cut. You'll see the legs have notches that slide into the tabletop. And there's these cutouts on the legs that where the cross braces fit in. So you do need to make sure you point them the right direction so the cutouts are pointing the right way. And then the cross pieces simply fit right into these notches. So it goes together extremely easily. You can't do it wrong. There's really only one way it's going to fit, and it should be good and sturdy. I think there's a little bit of wiggle to them, which is good for getting it put together. But of course, you'll want to make sure make sure it's all square before you do the final welding. But everything fits nicely. We've got cross braces, and I think I'll probably add a shelf to this lower cross brace later on, because that would be a useful bit of storage. And you see it goes together just like that, quick and easy. So now it's just a matter of welding it together and making sure it's square. All right, we're in the final stretch. I've got the legs welded up, and ready for the last little bit is to install the caster wheels. Pretty nice system that they've got set up here. There's a small little laser cut piece that goes into the end of the legs, and then a simple nut that just a couple tack welds should be plenty on that, since it's going to be not going to be intentional, just be in compression, and then a caster wheel that screws into that. So here we can see how the plate fits into the notches into the end of the leg. It's not a weld nut, it's just a standard nut, so no flange or anything, but it shouldn't take too much to weld onto that. And then of course this will screw in once it's all welded up. Well, I'm just about there. As I promised with this channel, when I screw things up, I'm going to show you. I'm not just going to hide it. I got 3 of the wheels, the caster wheels, screwed in just fine, but this one, I'm not sure if I got some weld into the threads, or I think I actually misaligned it slightly so that it's hitting part of the plate, so that I can only screw the caster wheel in part way. But it's a standard 1/2-inch thread. What I should have done is I should have gone out and gotten a 1/2-inch bolt to thread through there, so that it was all the way through, and I could use that to make sure it was clear of the plate before I welded it. But of course there's never time to do it right, but there's always time to fix it. So I'm going to run a tap through there, and I think it should be good. Perfect. A little bit of tapping. It was just barely off a tiny bit. The tap ran right through the little bit that was in the way. Got all 4 casters installed, so let's flip it over. All right, all set for my next welding project. I think this is going to work out nicely. Table went together pretty nicely. Some of my welds are ugly. I'm still I don't do this enough to get enough practice, but this was good practice. I still need to do a little more grinding. I was a little overeager on some of the welds. I tend to over weld a little bit, so there's a little more to grind down. But I've got it ground down pretty much flush. So went together pretty well. About the only thing that I'm not sure of, we'll see how it goes with time, is it feels like it's a little tall. So standing upright, it's a little high. I guess that gets me a little closer to what I'm working on, which is good. Sitting on the bench should be great for when I'm TIG welding. I'm still coming up to speed on TIG welding, but we'll see. I got one of the nice features I said, of course, is it's pre-drilled for clamps. So I bought 4 clamps, and they're just friction fit, and it should be great for holding things down and making sure they don't shift while I'm welding. The other thing I think I might do is there are 5/8 holes. I'm probably going to get a bunch of 5/8 bolts so that I can create temporary fixtures. My next welding project, I'm going to have multiple things that each part needs to be the same. So if I can create some sort of a temporary fixture, I can do one piece after the other pretty easily, just line them up, clamp them down, and weld through that. So that'll be for next week. In the meantime, time for a cold beer and sit back and just admire it for a little bit. See you next week.